Welcome once more, ladies and gentlemen, to the 7th session of our public lectures on the journalist and the law. During the 6th session, we talked to you about the difference between domicile and residence. That was to enable us get into today's topic. Today we shall be discussing divorce law in Cameroon. What is divorce? Divorce is the dissolution of a marriage by a court of competent jurisdiction. I repeat that. Divorce is the dissolution of a marriage by a court of competent jurisdiction. It means that the process must go to court and the court must proclaim or pronounce the husband and the wife as divorced. So it doesn't just suffice for the two of you to agree this person packs his or her luggage and moves out of the house. That will not be divorce. Divorce comes after a due process and pronounced by a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, when we are talking about divorce, there are three things you have to understand to consider. The first one, the reasons for divorce. Second one, if there are any children, custody of these children. The third, if there are any property in the marriage, how the property will be adjusted, will be shared because of divorce. In today's program, we are going to look only at the first one. We shall come back to the others in subsequent programs. So today we are going to focus our attention on the reasons for divorce. Now, as I said in the last lesson, in English law, for people who are married in the Northwest and Southwest, because those who are married in the 8 other regions of the country have a different law on divorce. For those who are married in the Northwest and the Southwest, there is only one ground for divorce, one. It is that the marriage has broken down irretrievably. The marriage has broken down irretrievably. Like Chinua Achebe said, that things have fallen apart. That is the meaning, the only ground for divorce in English law for those who are married in the Northwest and Southwest regions. Now, but there are 5 pointers, 5 indicators to prove that a marriage has broken down irretrievably. The first one is adultery. The second one is unreasonable behavior. The third one is desertion or living apart for 2 years and the parties consent to a divorce. The fourth is desertion, and then the fifth is living apart for a period of 5 years. Whether or not one of the parties desires divorce, it can be granted on that ground. But we are going to concentrate only on the first 2 pointers. That is adultery and unreasonable behavior. What is adultery? Adultery is when a man or a woman knows another person who is not their wife or their husband. I don't want to go into details using some technical words that I should have used because I know that there are minors who are watching this video. So I'm using only language that only adults would understand. So that is what adultery is all about. But it is very difficult to prove adultery. Very, very difficult to prove that your spouse, your husband, or your wife has committed adultery. Now, even if you know that they have committed adultery, and then you live with them for a period of 6 months, you will no longer be able to rely on that adultery to seek divorce. So it must be done within 6 months. So if your husband or your wife commits adultery and you find out and you live with them for a period of more than 6 months, then you are precluded, you are barred from using that as a pretext for divorce. So one of the parties must have committed adultery and the other one finds it intolerable to live with him or her. Now, this aspect of "and finds it intolerable," there is no agreement among legal minds as to the meaning of that. Some say that it is because of the adultery that the other spouse finds it intolerable. While some say that the conjunction "and" means that in addition to the adultery, there must be some other factor. You could say, for example, your wife does not know how to cook, she doesn't wash your dresses, or your husband does not know how to do some house chores. That could be enough to satisfy that requirement of intolerability. But whatever be the case, understand that it is a subjective reason. It is the person who is alleging who decides that I don't find it intolerable. So it is not for any other person to decide. It is you who is seeking divorce to say that because of this or that other attitude, I find it intolerable to live with my partner. That is for the first pointer, adultery and intolerability. The second pointer is unreasonable behavior. You can bring an action for divorce if your partner has behaved in such a way that you cannot reasonably be expected to live with him or her. Reasonably is an objective analysis. While for adultery it was subjective, now in this case of behavior it is objective. It is a court to determine. Now there is no shopping list of actions that will tell whether the person has behaved in an unreasonable manner. There is no shopping list. It depends on the case, on the situation, or the facts of each marriage. But generally, the following items could be used, have been used in decided cases in the past. For example, violence, you beat up your wife, or you beat up your husband, because it's not only husbands who beat. There are some wives who also beat up their husband. So you beat up your husband or your wife every time you inflict them with injuries, they could use that as unreasonable behavior. Or vile abuses. There are spouses who insult, their mates in the presence of strangers, in the presence of family. All of these could lead to trauma and other kinds of, physical and psychological torture. This could be assimilated as unreasonable behavior. The only yardstick is that the behavior should be, hearty. Unreasonable behavior. Grave, it should be grave and weighty conduct. Grave and weighty. So it's not just because of a simple fight that the courts will just grant divorce. No, it should be grave, serious, and weighty. Because like I said, the marriage institution is a sacred institution. Even though it's a contract between two people, in law we say it is a contract sui generis. It means that it should not be treated like any other contract that one party can just decide to put an end to it. So that is why the courts are very careful. Until the conduct is grave and weighty, the courts will not put an end to the marriage. So it's very difficult because the marriage institution is a sacred institution. It was established right in the Bible by God himself. And even the modern day judges have continued to toe the line, upholding the sanctity and the sacrosanct nature of marriage. So until the circumstances are beyond one that a couple cannot cope with, or a partner, a spouse cannot cope with, then will the courts move ahead to grant divorce. I told you, out of the 5 pointers which prove irretrievable breakdown of marriage, we're going to discuss only 2. And we have discussed the 2. The first one, adultery, that your spouse has committed adultery and you find it intolerable to live with him or her. And, the petition for divorce should be brought within 6 months from when you realize that your partner has committed adultery. And I told you again that it's very difficult to prove adultery by physical direct evidence. So sometimes those who go to court rely on circumstantial evidence. The second one is unreasonable conduct, unreasonable behavior. Talk about abuses, violence, beating up your spouse, and it should be grave and weighty conduct. Ladies and gentlemen, you now know what the causes of divorce are according to the common law system. When we come back in the next program, we are going to look at the second aspect, that is custody of children. In case of divorce, how do the courts proceed to determine custody of children in the marriage in case there are any children in that marriage? And now, I hope you now understand the causes of divorce in the Northwest and Southwest. I told you that in the other 8 regions of the country, there are different causes of divorce. But if you are married either in the Southwest or in the Northwest, these, what we have discussed, are the causes of divorce. If you have any suggestions, comments, recommendations, if you like what we are doing, please let us know. Get to us by writing to us through the email address that appears below the screen, or call us on the telephone number that you have on the screen right now. It can also be used as a medium for your WhatsApp messages. Until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening. Goodbye.